patients and easily allows staff to call them back in. The recall list should only be used for patients who require a follow-up appointment, not just a phone call. So before using the recall list, you would like to check your user's settings. For reception staff who will be booking the appointments, they should have the setting on new appointment clear from recall list. And for physicians and clinic managers, they should also have can dismiss a recall with no appointment selected. Adding patients to the recall list can be done in many places. I will start from the inbox physician in a lab report. All the physician has to do is checkbox recall. Because this patient already has an appointment today, it's going to ask if we want to set that appointment as the recall. We do not, so we're going to hit yes for a new one. Because I'm in the lab results screen, it already knows it's a lab result, so I can add more to that if I want. And this patient wants to come back. We want them to come back in 2 weeks. So we'll save that. It can also be done from reports, also by just clicking recall. And we can put the reason we want this patient to come back, and this patient is also going to be wanting to be recalled in 2 weeks. Recall can also be done from the patient's chart. Under this, anywhere you see the messaging button, you can recall the patient. By going recall, this patient already has a recall, so let me use another test patient. We will use test report, and we're going to recall this patient. And we might be recalling this patient for a physical, so we don't require them to come back for 6 months. And also, you can recall the patient from the schedule by double-clicking on the name and going recall. And we want another appointment. And again, this is going to be for yearly physical. And this patient doesn't need to come back for a year. So I'm going to save. Now, each physician has their own recall list. So, because I'm Dr. McIver, all of the recalls that I've just done are going to be on his schedule. So for the front staff checking the recalls, they go under actions on that physician's schedule and go to recall list. You'll notice I did 4 recalls, but you can only see 2 here. That is because the other 2 recalls I did were for 6 months and 1 year. So they're not going to show up on this recall list until a month before they're supposed to be booked. By clicking the refresh button, I can see all recalls for that physician, and I can see this patient will not be shown on this list until July, and this patient will not be shown on the list until next January, so that the front staff is only working with recalls that need to be happening right now. Now, this list can be printed if necessary. You can highlight the patient and click on registration if you need to see phone number or any other details. You can also highlight the patient and go to their chart for more details. So how it works, it will show the patient's information such as phone number and why they're coming up here. So I don't even need to get out of this list. I would call the patients. I can see that he needs to come in for a lab result. So I am now going to book test patient on the 21st. So I'm going to book test patient. And when I go to save the appointment, it's going to say recalls pending. Is it okay to mark this recall done for this appointment? So that means as soon as I hit OK, it's going to take the patient off the recall list because they are now have an appointment. Now, as the physician, if I'm going to be doing a new encounter for this patient, it puts the recall reason here when opening a new encounter, so you can easily tell why the patient was called in. Also, if this patient now calls and cancels their appointment, when I put it in the trash can, it puts it back on the list. This way, patients will not get missed. If they delete their appointment, they will be put back on the list for the same reason. Now, each physician has their own recall list, so I can check this physician's recall list, and they don't have any recalls. Now, I can go under the recall list and click all doctors. It will show all recalls for all doctors for all time periods. Now, I'm going to go back to Dr. McIver's. Now, if you've got a patient who's on the recall list, you can come in here and put notes, patient left message for patient, and I can save. I can come back in here and say left message again, and so on and so on. So if you've got a patient on your list who is just not going to come back in, or you cannot get a hold of them for whatever reason, whichever users, physician and clinic manager, we gave the access to dismiss a recall with no appointment, they can click dismiss recall. If you do not have that setting set, it says access denied. This way it's kind of the physician's or clinic manager's prerogative if the patient can be removed from the list. Now, underneath the physician's inbox, they will have the recalls. So this is the patient who is left without a recall. It does not include the patients who are not booked, who are not supposed to be contacted for 6 months and a year. When it comes time that they need to be contacted, they will be added on this list, so the physician can manage the recalls that are outstanding. The recall list can also be used with our callback system. If your clinic subscribes to our callback system, messages can be created such as, this is your clinic calling to inform you that Dr. McIver would like you to call and schedule a follow-up appointment. And how that would work is under our callback system, you can create a message called, for example, recall, and then you would go to the recall list and you can say, I want to call this person and call this person, kind of putting the onus on the patient to call you. And then as they're booked, they'll call and say, I've got to call to book a new appointment. As you go to book them the appointment, they are going to come off the list. And that is how the recall list works.